Hello. Hey, hi everyone. We are going to see how to improve performance on hybrid server in this video. Okay. Before talking about this, we need to understand what is the difference between hybrid server and all-flash server. You already know that Nutanix supports hybrid servers as well as all-flash servers. There are certain use cases and requirement in picking up this kind of models, but we need to have a clear understanding in which scenario we should go for hybrid server, and then in which scenario we should go for all-flash server. But before getting into that, we need to have a proper understanding of these two type of servers. Okay, I'm Paul Ilavarasar, a Nutanix certified SME. I do host a lot of trainings from Nutanix. Okay, getting into this, we are going to talk about VM flash move. Okay, so that's one of the features offered by Nutanix. This helps for guest VMs to improve the performance. But before getting into this, we have to talk about all flash server and hybrid model server. Okay, so this image talks about the hybrid server and all flash server. If you get into this, we have different architecture for both models. Okay, if you see this, we have a hybrid model server here, and this model server has SSDs and then hard disk. So combination of or mixing of SSDs and hard disk is the hybrid model server. Okay, but other side, if you see, we have all flash server where we have just SSDs. There is no hard disk. Okay, and if you want to compare this solution, so here you can the advantage you can say is low cost. Okay, why low cost? We are actually buying two SSDs and remaining all we are going for hard disk. You already know hard disk is lower than SSD. But if you go here, the advantage I come to that later, but the difference is it is a higher cost. Okay, why? Because everything is SSD. SSD is costlier, so we have to pay higher cost in the all flash server. Okay, so but I mean the cost is okay, but coming to the performance, second question is performance, right? So this is, I mean, you can say this is a decent performance, but you cannot compare with all flash server. But all server is better than hybrid model server. Okay, so these are the two major differences. So one side performance is decent in hybrid server, other side performance is better than hybrid server. But if you need a performance better than your hybrid server, then you have to invest higher cost. Okay, okay. Coming back to the I mean architecture. Okay, why do we have two SSDs here? What is the requirement for two SSDs? So we already said SSD offers low latency, so you can read and write the data faster. Okay, you can read and write the data faster. So and other side, it also offers in this architecture, these two SSD forms a RAID feature. Okay, there is a RAID feature, and this offers mirroring. Okay, so whatever you read, whatever you write here, that gets mirrored here. But there are few partitions where the RAID concept applies. Okay, and here we have a certain storage for cache memory. Okay, so this cache memory, what is cache memory, right? It most frequently data sits in this cache storage. Okay, so the advantage of this SSD, you have some data here, but your read. Okay, so when you say read, a read cannot be served from here. Okay, or may not be. Okay, what will happen when you have hybrid model server? So when there is a read request, you read the data from here, then immediately the data gets moved to your cache memory. So this cache memory, we also say that it is a hot tier, and this we say cold tier. There are two tiers in the hybrid model server. One is hot tier and other one is cold tier. Okay. So in hot tier, the most frequently data, right? That actually sitting here and it is served to your guest VMs. There are a couple of VMs running. So every VM gets certain storage from uh, hot tier. Okay, so this movement, right, moving data from here to here, and you know the difference, right? Why the data needs to be moved here because here the latency is very low, so VM can read and write the data very fast. But if VM needs to read the data from hard disk, the latency is low, so your performance is little slow. So to have a good performance, we are actually giving the SSD option here. So your most frequently data comes and stays here for some time till your VM access it. But in all flash model here, we have no concept of hot air and cold air movement because everything is SSD. Wherever your data sits, it gets the same performance, same latency. So the performance is uniform in all SSDs. So this is where we say all flash server gives a higher performance than your hybrid model server. Okay, so this is the major difference between your hybrid model server and all flash server. Okay, but here in this video, we are going to talk about hybrid model server. Okay, we already said every VM gets certain storage from hardware. So there is a certain data which that VM is actually accessing. That data comes to the hardware. Okay, so now the even adding few points in the hot air, cold air, right? So this is part. This is the diagram which gives the detailed explanation, okay, or detailed view. Okay, so this is your node one or host one, you can say node two, node three, and node four. In every node, you have SSD and hard disk. SSD and hard disk. Okay, so now what will happen? So all the SSD and hard disk is pooled and that called as a storage pool in Nutanix. Okay, but other side, all the SSDs also grouped into cluster by SSD tier. So this tier we say that hard tier. Okay, and certain all the hard disk is above is SSD tier and this is a hard disk tier. This we say cold tier. Okay, so if there is a VM running on this node, if that VM is having a 4 GB of data, out of that 4 GB, probably 0.5 GB is accessing by that VM now. So that 5 GB is sitting here. Okay, and remaining 3.5 GB, 0.5 GB is here, and remaining 3.5 GB sitting in the cold tier. So maybe after some time you are accessing some data from this 3.5 GB, then that moves to your hot tier. Okay, so this movement is happening continuously. Okay, so here if it is cold, I mean when you say cold, nobody is accessing that data, right? No VMs are accessing that data. If somebody is accessing, start reading this data, then it comes to your hot tier. And then after periodic time, nobody is again, I mean, the data is idle, nobody is accessing, then it comes back to your cold tier. So this movement is automatically happening with the help of Curator. So Curator is a service that offers MapReduce. So MapReduce takes care of this intelligent tiering. It just monitor the data based on the read and write. It just decide, okay, so there is a read request for this certain data. So to provide the read data, I need to keep this data in the hot tier. So let me move the data to the hot tier. Okay, so this movement is dynamically happening. Okay, no manual intervention required. Okay, so this is uniform policy for all the VMs running in hybrid model server. Hybrid model server. Okay, that's fine. I'm getting an equal performance for all the VMs. That's fine. But there are certain VMs. Okay, there are certain VMs. Which is critical, highly critical. I need maximum performance for this VM. Okay, maximum performance for this VM. Do you have any solution? That's a question we get it from customer. Okay, yes, we have that. We have an answer for that problem. Yes, how? With the concept of VM flash mode. Okay, so with this, what is happening? We wanted to keep the data at hot tier always. Don't say, I mean, sorry, I take my sentence back. I don't want to say hot tier. I say that I want to keep my data to sit at SSD always. Because the movement, right here we said, right, this movement is happening, right? So if the movement is, I mean, if this movement, it takes some time, right? So when there is a read request, it has to move the data from here to there. It takes some time. And then you read the data, and after periodic time, then again the data
goes back to the cold tier. So this movement is happening. So there is still some wait time or latency issue, right? To avoid this for the critical VMs, what we can do is we can just pin the critical VMs to SSD tier. SSD. Okay, we are doing VM pinning. Okay, so by doing this, okay, so we are making sure that this particular VTs for that particular VM is always sits in the SSD. It never goes to hard disk. I repeat, uh, with generic behavior of hybrid model, it offers intelligent tiering. So most frequently data sits in hard tier, less, I mean, less access or not access to data sits in cold tier. Because SSD in hybrid model, we have only two SSD, and then in this two SSD we have mirroring. So we have very limited storage for cache memory. If we keep all the data in then we will not able to offer this solution for entire VMs, right? So that we have to save the cost and but at the same time to provide a good performance, we have taken two SSDs and then in that two SSD we have allocated certain storage for cache tier. So very limited data can be sit in this cache tier. So if you run 50 VMs, all 50 VMs, okay, if you run 50 VMs, all 50 VMs needs to have the cache storage. I mean, this storage, access to this storage. Okay, so this is the behavior of hybrid model. But I said there is a requirement. I have a critical VM. I cannot keep behavior like this. For that critical VM, I need to change the total behavior because for that particular VM, I want to keep the data to be sitting at hot tier always. Okay, how? By doing the VM pinning option. Okay, so how this VM pinning works? Okay, you have a VM where you enable VM flash mode. When you enable this, this data always sits in the SSD. Okay, it never drained out or it never go to hard disk. This will never happen. Okay, so this is the solution we are going to get it with the VM flash mode, but we will see how to enable this feature. Okay, so by default, while creating a VM, you don't get this feature because we are going to enable based on VM. So if you just click and then if you just I mean, while creating a VM, so if you just go and create a VM, you don't see that feature available. See, nowhere. I mean, generally it comes here, but we don't have that option. Okay, but after creating a VM, just click that VM. I have one VM here. Just click on update. Okay, if you scroll down, you will be able to see this option, enable flash mode. Okay, just check this. And then there is a message, ensures no down migration of data from the flash tier. So there is no down migration to cold tier. So the data always sits in the flash tier. Flash tier in the sense it's a SSD, right? It's a flash storage. SSD is a flash storage. So by enabling this, checking this option, now once you save this, what will happen? This for this VM, there are certain the VDIS that always sits in the SSD. The data never move to hard disk. So for this VM, now the performance will be very much good because there is no that intelligent tiering is happening, right? It obviously takes some time to move the data from there to here and here to there, which impact in the VM performance. But with this VM flash mode, we get a good performance. Okay, but do we have any problem with this? Is there any backside? If there is any issues or any challenges, we get it. Yes, obviously we get it. This is a suitable solution for guess VMs running in hybrid model to get all flash server performance. Okay, so I repeat, there are certain VMs requires all flash server performance, but I don't want to replace my hybrid model server to all flash server. But at the same time, I expect the same performance what I get in all flash server. Those VMs we are enabling this VM flash mode, but we cannot enable this feature for all the VMs. Okay, maybe very few VMs we can enable it because SSD is very small. SSD is very small, so we cannot accommodate all the VMs to get this feature. So we have to do proper sizing, proper planning before enabling this VM flash mode, and keep this option at last because this also impact other VMs. Other VMs, when I say VMs where you have not enabled VM flash mode. Okay, why? Because Nutanix, this feature guarantees SSD storage for enable VM flash enabled VMs, correct? There is a guarantee storage. So already some storage is reserved for this VM flash mode. So the cache memory is now, the storage is very minimal now. With this, we have to offer the hot tier, cold tier feature, intelligent tiering feature for other non-critical VMs. So there is a chance that VMs get impacted because of this feature. So this is why we said keep this option at last, okay? But if you want to enable this, have a proper understanding, proper analyze before enabling this, okay? So coming back to the conclusion, okay? Sorry, coming back to the difference, hybrid server is low cost, all flash server is higher cost, but performance, all flash offers very good performance, but hybrid is little low than all flash server. But there is a feature which offers all flash server performance on hybrid server. How? By enabling the VM flash mode. Okay, so this feature can be enabled for critical VMs, but don't enable this feature for all the VMs because I already said there is a limited storage from the SSD. It cannot accommodate all the VMs. Okay, so with this, we finish up this session. We have a lot more to see. Okay, we will get back to you.